Okay, so this presentation will be broken down into three sections. I'll first give you the context of my experience in Ghana to establish the perspective that I'm coming from. Second, I'll jump into my research findings. And then third, I'll open up the session for questions. So our panel of community partners who are experts in their fields will address these questions. And this panel includes hip hop scholar Kalonji Nzinga, music preservation expert Dr. Kwashi Kuvor, and urban music representative from YFM Israel Dickens. So throughout the presentation, once again, if you have any questions, please write it in the comments and we'll address it during this time. So let's get into the context. You know, there's a diverse audience here, and some people know the exact work that I've done here in Ghana. There's others know that I simply done work in Ghana, and others that just know me as a DJ. But it's important to note that, you know, what led to my experience in Ghana was a culmination of meeting people here in Chicago and expanding on those relationships in Ghana. And it was a very spontaneous and eye-opening experience to be able to, you know, end up in Ghana, because never in my wildest dreams did I wake up and think for 1 second when I was like a teenager, oh, I'm gonna go take a flight to Ghana to do some work around music. You know, I did not know that was gonna happen, but it did. And one of those reasons why it did is because of all of the great mentors that I've had in my life and the directions that they've helped me move. But I've been in Ghana for 3 consecutive years on a study abroad experience, a music preservation workshop, and a Fulbright Fellowship in 2020, which is my most recent experience. So as I mentioned, my first experience was in a study abroad experience in 2018. And at the time, I chose to go to Ghana because I wanted to study somewhere. I wanted to use the opportunity at Northwestern University to travel and expand my own horizons and to get out of my comfort zone. And I was considering 2 places. One place was Ecuador, which is the place where my family is from. And then I was also considering some other place that I did not know yet. But at the time at Northwestern, I had a really great mentor whose name was Atagana Boy. And he served as an uncle in my life. He's helped me out so much. And I told him, you know, what I was facing, you know, where I wanted to go. And he told me to consider Ghana. And he said, yo, I think you should go to Ghana. And I was like, for real? I'm like, I respect you. You're awesome. Like, sure, I will be open to this idea. And so I did a little bit more research, and they definitely have the programs I was interested in. And so that's why I chose to go to Ghana in the first place. So here's like a video kind of describing and visualizing my first year in Ghana. It's just a minute, but it'll give you an idea.
Okwentuniasem ebidie ye mombo ebidie ye nichie then so medie me say yeah I will go back home. Yeah I will go back home.
Okay, that video ends at the Performance Art Department at the University of Ghana. This is where I spent a lot of time. I enrolled in classes here, and this is where I met Dr. Kwashi Kuvor in a drumming class. And, you know, I had a lot of fun with my friends in this class. But after you know, there was one time where we were trying to learn the actual drumming rhythms and remember them when we went back to our dorms, but we couldn't remember the rhythms because they're so like particular and precise, right? Music, you have to be so precise, whether it's you're creating lyrics or you know, recreating drum rhythms. And so what I did was I recreated the drumming rhythms on a music production software to help me and my classmates remember the rhythms for our performance test. And so me and my friends would be using this this audio that I recreated so that we could study and we practice with each other. And then one day I needed some help. I needed help, and we all needed help. We couldn't remember one particular rhythm. So I went to an office hours with Dr. Kuvor, and I showed him what we had created. And Dr. Kuvor mentioned, hey, we can do something with this. And so he gave me his blessing to come back to Ghana. And just to give you like an idea of what I created on the music production software, here it is. So this is an audio piece, and this is what we use to study. So you can see that I isolated all of the sounds with the bell in the background, but now here it is all together. All right, so when I brought that forward to Dr. Kuvor, I had no idea that he would get so excited over it because, I always just like to make music for fun. And when I brought that forth to Dr. Kuvor, he said, hey, we can do something with this. And so, that gave me the motivation and the understanding that there was a possibility to work together again if I could get back to Ghana. So the following year, I successfully applied to a Davis Project for Peace grant, which gave me the opportunity to come back to Ghana. In 2 months, I worked directly with Solidarity Studios and the Performance Art Department at the University of Ghana to host a music preservation workshop where students learned to record and then remix Balogo music, the music that Kwame Nkrumah used in his political campaign to help create a national imaginary of the newly founded nation of Ghana. So this music has a great historical context. And here's like a little visual of what that looked like. Right, and then here's the actual like final recording from that workshop. Okay, so that gives you like an audio experience about, the music that we recorded. But you may ask, why did we host a music preservation workshop and why did we record bilingual music? Well, during this time, I was getting more into understanding what people were doing in Ecuador, which is my home country. And there's a lot of artists in Ecuador, but one specific named Nicolas Cruz, who was um, taking audio samples of music from the Andes, the mountains, and also the Amazon rainforest. And Nicolas Cruz would blend these basically indigenous sounds with contemporary electronic music, and I found that really, really awesome and a cool way to apply like traditional music from the past into contemporary music now. So after a successful music preservation workshop, I used the momentum to apply for a Fulbright Fellowship. And of course, with all of the help and resources that Northwestern gave me, they really helped me, clinch this fellowship, and I'm very grateful for that. And after connecting with traditional communities in Ghana with Dr. Kuvor, I wanted to connect with urban community of music makers for my Fulbright Fellowship. And during this time, I got the opportunity to DJ for the #1 urban radio station in Ghana, YFM, collaborate with music studios such as Avis Entertainment, and conduct research as a Fulbright scholar. And the reason why I wanted to connect with urban music makers is because I am a city boy. I was born and raised in a city, but I also always had this inclination to want to connect to my own roots. After my family immigrated to the United States. And so it's kind of funny at home, I always do these things that seem like very Ecuadorian, like put in some cheese in my coffee. And then my dad be like, yo, you're more Ecuadorian than us. And I was born there. And I'm like, hey, true, I'm trying to learn. But, I thought that there might be other people born in the city also interested in that. But also at the same time, I'm naturally inclined to the city, and I definitely wanted to, get a vibe in Accra of what it was like in the contemporary music scene. So here's what the experience looked like visually.
We have one goal. We want to bring together all artists and scientists from all walks of life to come experience great art, the creation of great art that can change this world. So that's what we do. Let's buy a guitar, bro. This one I gotta do the job back. Me, I know get tired of the da. Dada cover my face, calling me like bada. Big man, we do get bada. What's it coming? You are coming. All the best. The cash. I love it. What's it coming? You are coming. All the best. The cash. I love it.
I feel music gives me life. So when I get my headphones on, I get my jota, my pen, or my pencil, and I get what inspires me on, bro, I'm good to go. Yeah, I can create music. Yeah.
I know one day, I know one baby. I want enjoy, I want job life, I want buy motor, I want build house, I still want to know. Tell me.
Okay, and with the the new community that I've connected with, which is urban music makers in the city. We also created music, and I'll just give you like a 20-second glimpse of what that sounded like collaborating with them.
me your love, give me your love. Give me your love, give me your love. Ọba ẹ̀sìn mẹ́, wà á fẹ́ máa mi dílé. Má di ohun sáǹtì máa sá méjì àbá. Ọba ẹ̀sìn mẹ́, wà á fẹ́ máa mi dílé. Má di ohun sáǹtì máa sá méjì àbá. Give me your love.
So, coming in to my Fulbright research, you know, I came from the perspective as a beat maker, as an organizer of the music preservation workshop, and also as a DJ. And I think this is super important to note when you come to when we start to learn what approaches that I will be coming with. And also another research disposition, just to make clear of as well, is that when working with Dr. Kuvor, and especially working with traditional music, Dr. Kuvor distinguished two kinds of music: secular music and sacred music. Sacred music is the kind of music that is exclusive for a particular group of people and cannot be listened to or touched by anybody, including me and including people outside of that particular group. Versus secular music, which can be celebrated, listened to, and worked with by all different types of people because it's part of the secular culture. So I'm going to exit out of here real quick and stop sharing. So if you have any questions about the context, you can feel free to write it in the chat. But if you get a vibe of my experience in Ghana over the 3 years, let me get a thumbs up. All right, awesome. So yeah, that's 3 years. That's 3 years in like 10 minutes. So I tried my best with that. I hope I hope that covered it. Okay. So now I'd like to get into the research and, you know, the hypothesis and claims that I'm coming from. And I just want to like forefront this conversation that there is so many people involved with working with music preservation. Even people in this chat, such as Coulter. Coulter did a great job, you know, building an archive and building a studio at the University of Ghana. So I just want to pre-note that what I'm coming with is a small part of a huge thing that's happening. And I really hope that, you know, we can gain something from me coming from the point of being, like I said, a beat maker, being a DJ and community organizer. So I'm going to jump back into the research and the presentation. And I'm going to share my screen. All right. Screen is sharing. All right. Can you all see yourselves? All right, we're going back. So my research in Ghana basically points to this hypothesis that urban music makers are the key to music preservation initiatives in Ghana, right? But even before I go on to like try to provide any type of evidence or yada, 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 like let's define some terms. Current side. Okay, so who is an urban music maker? Urban music maker describes a producer, an engineer, or artist that lives in Accra, Kumasi, or other larger cities in Ghana. Urban music makers often have family that live in villages or small towns, but are the first or second generation born in the city. Urban music makers are independent in nature and lack institutional support. And some common music genres that urban music makers make are Afrobeat, Afro house, and hip hop music. And so here are some examples of the type of music. And this is like music you'll hear on YFM, right? Like the popular radio station.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah. Mercy. Another ball. Feel it. Sexual healing, healing. She give me healing. She give me enemies that go like so. Reap what you see. Yeah. Don't let me die like so. Lord have mercy on my soul. Bless me so. Make the money come like so. I get expensive days. On my way to heaven. Looking fresh as hell. Come on to doctor. I say I get expensive days. On my way to heaven. Looking fresh as hell.
So, you know, that's some type of music we'll hear if we go to, like, you know, Labadi Beach or go to the club, have some fun, you know, on YFM. And now moving forward to defining music preservation. Music preservation describes the act of recording, cataloging, and making accessible music that is part of a nation's cultural heritage. Music preservation initiatives are largely institutional, administrative, and financial in nature. They often involve efforts to not only safeguard music, but also to include cultural content in education, to center indigenous forms of knowledge, and lead to international cooperation. Preserved music in Ghana often takes the form of genres of music such as dagomba, agbaja, and other forms of traditional music. And here's what it might sound like. Okay, so we might ask ourselves, if we're not familiar with this this area of study or this field, why should we preserve music and cultural heritage, right? What is the importance of it? Well, first, the preservation of indigenous music and languages centers repertoires of Ghanaian knowledge or local knowledge if we're considering the world, which is unique and in opposition to the dominant forms of Eurocentric knowledge, which is, as I said, dominant. Eurocentric education, Eurocentric music, Eurocentric everything. You know, this is the direct opposite of that. Second, centering indigenous music, arts, and knowledge can lead to personal discovery. And lastly, personal discovery in collaboration with indigenous heritage can lead to social, technological, and political development that is local and suited for the local place, and in this case, Ghana. Okay, so when we talk about music, a lot of the traditional music is drumming, right? And drumming is considered a language. And let me give you an example. Everybody, please try to read the screen. Okay, this is not drumming, but this is some Western notations. But this is to get to the point of how music can be a language. Help! I'm in trouble. I ran over something sharp, and now my tire is flat. I need a quarter for the phone. Do I need to repeat any of that? So I don't know if you're able to read that. We can catch up later about that, but that's just an illustration of it. So according to Dr. Kuvor, which is one of my main collaborators on the traditional end, language holds repertoires of knowledge that are local to that language. And in other words, the language that you speak determines how you think and perceive conceptions of the world, such as time, such as nature, such as death. So the best way that I can describe this is by using an analogy presented by a movie called Arrival. Put your thumbs up if you've seen Arrival. Okay, so in this movie, you know, for anybody who hasn't seen it, in this movie, basically 12 alien ships come to Earth, And the government recruits their best linguistic translator to try to understand and decipher the language of the aliens. In the movie, we discover that the aliens perceive time as circular and cyclical, in contrast to the Western perception of time, which is the linear 24-hour clock. This gives them the ability to see the past and to see the future. So the purpose of the aliens' visitation in the movie was to give the human race a gift, and that gift was their language. So when the linguist learned and acquired the language of the visitors, she was able to perceive time as cyclical. So I'm gonna say that one more time. When she acquired the language and learned the language, she started to be able to perceive time. It changed her way and perception of time as from that linear 24-hour clock to that cyclical nature of time. In other words, instead of only being able to remember the past, she could now also remember the future. And now just imagine like how the world can develop because of this new language. The fact that she can access time in this capacity. So although this is a fictional movie, it highlights real theories about linguistic relativity and the ways languages affect how we perceive the world and therefore develop the world. So in this light, while more people in Ghana and around the world like turn to urbanization and globalization, meaning people are moving from villages, towns into the city, and this is happening all around the world. In the process, people start to forget indigenous forms of language, music, and art. And that means that there is less access to those forms of thought, knowledge, and development relative to that heritage. So there are music preservation initiatives intact to try to keep these things alive. And so that is why music preservation, right? So what are current forms of music preservation techniques? Well, one of those forms is online catalogs. Smithsonian Folkways Records, they have a great catalog. The Library of Congress has also a catalog of preserved music of like, let's say, music from the Roaring 20s. And the International Library of African Music also has a great catalog that exists. So I'll give you an example of how these catalogs actually look. So this is a catalog at the Smithsonian Folkways Records. This is the way Smithsonian Museum is archiving music and indigenous music at that. I'll give you an example of how it sounds. Okay, so I could buy the song and listen to it if I want, right? And you know, put it in my computer and have a digital file for it, and yeah, listen to it basically anytime that I want. So let's give you another example. Citizen DJ Labs. This is the Library of Congress, and they've done a great job in not only archiving music, but making it interactive. So let's see, inventing entertainment. Let's explore it. Right, this is gonna take 20 seconds probably to load. Okay, this is how the archive is organized. So that is music from the Roaring 20s. And what is the interactivity part of this? Well, you can remix this actually. So let me give you an example. So let me turn up the tempo. Awesome. That's fun, right? That is so fun. You can make music now if you want. So if you say you're not a music maker, I'll send you the link so you can make music. And lastly, the International Library of African Music. This one I had trouble with accessing the sounds, but let's see if this time it works. Okay, the sound won't play, but this is how the library is archived. All right. So now going back to this, what are some of reviews on these catalogs? Well, most of these catalogs include live recordings of music and performances recorded on the field by anthropologists or ethnomusicologists. Excuse me, my dog probably sees another dog outside. But while it is amazing that these catalogs make accessible the music for people to listen to, some of these catalogs are quite difficult to interact with. Citizen DJ did a good job, right? Like, you can interact with it. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do with this research is learn how to interact more with these catalogs. And why do we need to interact with these catalogs? Well, we all know that if we are looking at music as a language, and we are looking at music as a language that leads to knowledge, it should be practiced as a language. We all have to, when we're trying to acquire a new language, we can't just listen to the language. We have to interact with it. We have to speak it, listen to it, write it, breathe it, and practice it with other people. And this is what a lot of catalogs do not provide. They only provide the opportunity to listen to. So how can we increase the opportunity for interaction with catalogs and indigenous music? Sampling. Sampling is a hip-hop technique that serves as the foundation of modern-day music making. It is the basic building block of any digital song. Samples are basically, let's say, they're sound recordings, right? They're sound recordings that are reused and repurposed. So let me give you an example. This right here is a harp. Okay, I'll play that one more time. This is a sample of a harp. Now, how can I interact with this harp? Well, I could create a beat around it and actually create my own creation around it. And this is one thing that I've created around it. All right, we hear the harp one more time. Here's the sample. Right, so if we take a sampling first perspective when creating music catalogs, it will give music producers and beat makers access to particular parts of the song that they can interact with, build on, and learn from. And so now what might that look like? Building a sampling first perspective like catalog. Well, at our music preservation workshop, we've also built a catalog, and this is what it looks like. Right. So these are isolated samples of Follow Go music that we recorded in the music preservation workshop. And now, basically, any producer or beat maker can download this, and then when they download it, they can incorporate this into their music and interact with it, and engage with it. So how might that sound? Well, here are some examples. Here is one that sounds kind of cinematic, using Follow Go maybe for like a movie scene or something like that. And this was created by participants in music preservation workshop. Okay, so if we know anybody that may be making a movie about Kwame Nkrumah, we know that, oh, okay, we could use these samples to create a production that might sound good for a movie, right? And then let's say though that you're more of like a DJ. You're like, yo, I want to play in clubs. How can we create Follow Go into a more of a, you know, clubby type scene? All right, so I know that we can all get down and boogie to that one if, you know, we were with some friends and we're in that type of setting. And here's another production created by a Ghanaian producer named Lahai Samura, and this one is more of a remix of those samples for a beat for an artist to sing over or rap over.
Beat by Lahai.
True vibes. This is true vibes here. Right. So taking a sampling first perspective to catalogs is just, it is so awesome because it gives a diverse range of ability to engage with it. That is also personal to the individual engaging with it. As you can hear the difference between these three different productions using the same samples. Okay. But we should ask ourselves, how relevant are sample packs, right? because when we look at music preservation policies, they're often local and autonomous. So this means that there are, they're different across places according to like the social structures and, government initiatives and et cetera. Here's one thing that I learned. In Ghana, there are so many producers and DJs and artists and MCs that all want to collaborate with each other. And it is a really hip hop type vibe, and sampling is very, very hip hop. And even though people are creating Afrobeat, they're using hip hop techniques to create the Afrobeat music, which is sampling. But one thing that I did is our team conducted a survey among 30 producers between 10 different music studios in Accra, right? And we presented this scenario. You just downloaded a new sample pack. How likely are you to use it? So the number that the survey showed is 76%. So that means about 3 out of 4 people, if they receive the sample pack, it means that they will use it. And why is this important to look at? Well, this means that if a producer, engineer, or artist got their hands on these samples, 3 out of 4 of them, it's probable that 3 out of 4 of them will use it, interact with those indigenous forms of music, and possibly acquire knowledge from it. So what does it take to produce a sample pack, though? Well, first, producing a sample pack, you have to be able to know how to record audio in a studio setting, as you can see from the first photo. Then you'll have to be able to know how to edit those recordings so that they sound right and they sound clean, but also so that it can be looped. And then lastly, you'll have to be able to understand how to organize the loops into a package or a catalog. So here's the big question. Why are urban music makers the key to music preservation initiatives in Ghana? Well, claim number 1, urban music makers own the skills and assets to record and edit traditional music, right? So here's the evidence. In the survey, we have, also, by the way, in the survey, there was 31 that took it. However, there was 1 duplicate, so we took out the 1 duplicate. So I don't want you to get your numbers mixed up. But here it shows that 29 out of 30 producers surveyed that they either have the skills and or assets to record audio in a studio setting and also to edit the audio files. So they have the skills. The communities that I'm working with, the producers that are even on this chat right now, they know how to record. They have access to the resources to record and edit. Claim number 2, urban music makers are interested in contributing to music preservation initiatives in Ghana. What I'm saying here is that the community that I'm working with is very interested in collaborating for these types of projects, music preservation projects. Here is the evidence. If the opportunity presented itself, would you join a team to record, digitize, and catalog traditional music for compensation? 96% or 29 out of 30 said yes. So I think it'd be unhealthy to think about like the fact that if you're an urban music maker, you only stick to Afrobeat or hip hop. Like that is not true. People are interested in doing this, and young people are interested in doing this. And here's the last claim. Urban music makers are not connected to institutional opportunities to preserve music. So here is the evidence. Have you ever recorded vocals or instruments in a traditional setting in partnership with an educational institution for compensation? 75% said they never had the opportunity to do this, while 96% want to do it. So in light of this, if you look at this picture one more time, producers are interested in engaging in this type of work. But one thing that I should mention is that when it comes to recording, the survey shows that the assets and the skills are there. When it comes to editing, the assets and the skills are there. And then when it comes to cataloging, it seems like there might be some more education that needs to be around that, because only 33% of the producers actually created a sample pack, something similar to what the Thalogo sample pack looks like. So if there were any education initiatives, two, according to the survey, like it makes sense to direct it to that, to understanding how to organize the information, how to catalog the information, and also to make it accessible to the greater population. So what are some benefits of bridging the gap? Well, I have 3 benefits listed here that that I discussed with the community, which is first, urban music producers can help institutions with their preservation initiatives, with the skills and assets, and also the will to do it and the want to do it. Second, institutions can help bridge the gap between urban communities and traditional knowledge. And lastly, institutions can possibly provide employment opportunities to qualified producers and engineers that might not have been connected to these opportunities before, therefore creating economic stimulation, within these areas of music making and preservation. So at this part, I wanted to invite NFL King Grandy, who is an artist, to say something about bridging the gap. So let's see. I'm gonna stop presenting. Grandy, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome, awesome. So, Grandy, please introduce yourself, to everyone. Your name, your role, and then also, maybe talk about, what we discussed with the experience with the Ghana Music Project, and that time we went to Nolopi during the music preservation project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So, first, I would like to thank the Light for this opportunity with you all. And as you know, I'm NFL King Randy, teaching artist, producer, and assistant producer for Ghana Music Projects. Talking about going back to our own tradition and how it has impacted me, I would say that is self-realization from direct roots. Connecting to our forefathers, relatively to the Native Americans, how they live in history today is something that we have to keep in our present form of living. And to talk about experience to Fiona Apple, a great American singer, confesses with her own mouth, saying, and I quote, "What is really good than an African drum?" And I felt that she has been through a lot of experience with Africans, and she knows what African music and drum is all about. And I would say African drum has a language that is understood by the soul, and it resonates into a different dimension. So, and I apply, and secondly, and last and foremost, I imply that this type of workshop are important, and they needed to they need to be taking place in more often to keep preservation of culture and tradition in its roots. That's what I want to say.
Okay, thank you, and Grandy, there was a time. Well, I'll also talk on this too. Like there was a time where it was interesting because when we were doing a music preservation workshop, we were working with the University of Ghana, and there was a time we had to go to Nolopi in the Volta region, and I met Grandy, and Grandy's like, "Yo, I want to help with this production assistant." We had no idea where we're going, and this is like my second time in Ghana, so I'm like, I don't know where Nolopi's at. I have no idea. Like, all right, let's do it. And then we kind of find out that Nolopi is actually like less than 200 meters away from Afife, which is, Grandy can tell you what Afife is.
Yes, and that actually caught me by surprise because on my first time out there on the workshop, like on a work field, and with I don't know, I feel it's a blessing. It's something that is really meant to be to connect it back to my culture. And I think being a city boy for a very long time and not being connected to culture has really taken a lot of my life away. Because Africa got a great soul, a very good soul, and I need to connect with my roots to keep my soul alive.
I feel you. I appreciate you for sharing, Grandy. And then also, you know, going back to that story too, like it was interesting with Dr. Kuvar because Nolopi was like 200 meters away from Grandy's home, actually home village, and like Grandy actually hasn't been there for years and years and years. So it was interesting how a music preservation workshop could lead to those types of reconnections, right? With with your traditional knowledge or where your family comes from and different things like that. So on that note, I would love to do that also back in my own home country in Ecuador, right? To see where my own family is from through these different types of projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
that'll be very good for you to do. Honestly, connecting back to our roots has a lot to do for us to understand ourselves, and it's all about self-realization. Honestly, going back to our roots. Yeah.
Thanks, NFL. I appreciate it. And maybe one time, maybe you can come to Ecuador too and meet my fam out there.
Bless it, brother.
Bless. Okay, so what can we do?
I appreciate it, bro.
So what can we do to move forward? Well, first, we can develop more sample-based catalogs in Ghana and around the world. So even when I think about Colter and his project, right, we could think about, you know, what are some ways we could make these archives that you're building more accessible, right? Ibrahim Mali from Solidarity Studios, who's in this meeting, always thinks about this and talks about this. So maybe we can connect about that more, right? Second, what else can we do to move forward? Well, if producers actually use sample packs, we need to distribute these sample packs to as many producers as possible because we can see how they can engage with these sample packs and what types of creations they make with them. And then lastly, creating a database or a forum to contact qualified producers and open up those opportunities between producers and preservation initiatives also seems to make some sense, right? I'm going to go back to my presentation one more time, and then we'll open up the panel for discussion. All right, can you see my screen? Thumbs up. All right, great. So moving forward also, you know, if we do get these samples and make these things accessible, seems like there is more research to be done on the actual acquisition of indigenous and historical knowledge after interacting with the sample packs, right? And I feel that, you know, this is not even a hypothesis, just what I'm feeling, right? And what I'm seeing too, but and also what I'm doing as a beat maker and producer myself. But if you see this cover art, like when you create a song, people perform the song, people create cover art, people engage with that song in many different ways, right? And so here is some examples of cover art created by producers that actually sample traditional indigenous sounds, right? So this means that this also not only involves beat makers, music producers, engineers, but graphic designers. If you're gonna shoot a music video, it may require a costume designer, it may require videographers, it may require a whole bunch of different types of collaborations around that type of interaction with music. And if you could actually see the one on the right, it says Nunca se olvida, and there's a photo there. This is one that I've actually created, and that photo is a photo of my grandmother as a teenager with her father, and then with my two uncles as babies. And I created this art around it, and I was able to learn more about all of the people in this picture at that point and moment in history, right? So we're not even asking, you know, are we acquiring knowledge, but we're also asking what kind of knowledge. Is it familial knowledge that we're acquiring? Is it historical knowledge? What kind of knowledge do we acquire from interacting with these? And to sum everything up, music preservation in this sense, this is more than academia. This is a living and breathing part of contemporary life right now for creative artists. Some people breathe and die music. Some people, we do this because we love it. And when we go back to samples, one of the most common ones that is in popular conversation right now is with Burna Boy sampling Fela Kuti, Shakara song. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is Burna Boy's song, My Money, My Baby, and Burna Boy sampled Fela Kuti, and there's been all talks around like his act of sampling. You know, there's some people who like it, some people who dislike it, there's some people who are like, yo, this is awesome, he's moving on tradition. There's some people like, oh, he's copying. But simply with this research presentation, I just want to continue that conversation and keep it rolling, right? How can we continue to sample from the past in contemporary times right now? And if you see the two pictures on the right and left, these are South American artists that do this, and I featured their photos there because Ecuador, Argentina, and people in these places are really doing this type of thing well, and they really inspired me to continue this type of work in Ghana. So let's just ask ourselves, how can we continue engaging with culture and, you know, taking a sample-based perspective and sampling archives and catalogs might be a way to do that. So that is the end of the presentation. And I want to bring this back for questions and answers and just for a panel discussion right now. I think there is some technical difficulties with some panelists entering. So Ibrahim, are you here?
I am.
Awesome, awesome. So Ibrahim, if you can introduce yourself first of all, of who you are, what you do, and then what we're about to get into.
Yeah, absolutely. And first, you know, thanks again, Caesar, for bringing us all together and sharing this awesome project. Like, just going through all this with you is like you said, energizing and creating such a strong vibration of the past and the present and a, you know, maybe a circular observation of time to bring it all back. My name is Ibrahim Ali. I am the founder and executive director of Solidarity Studios, and it's a blessing to work with all the amazing creatives as part of our family. Caesar's been a big leader, especially on the music preservation front, and I'm really pleased to support and continue supporting the amazing work that he and the rest of the team are doing in Ghana and beyond. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. Who do we have all in the room right now, Caesar?
So we have Kalonji.
Yep.
Yeah.
And my esteemed colleague and dear friend, Dr. Kalonji Nzinga. Thank you for coming through and being with us today.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, Eves? I'm good, man. Good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah.
Kalonji, if you could just introduce yourself to everybody so they know what you do, what you represent, how hip hop you are, Kalonji.
Word, man. My hype man, Caesar, man. I'm so happy to be here. So I've worked with Caesar and Ibrahim and Uncle Mike and a lot of folks on this call, really, around a number of initiatives around music preservation and music education. I'm a professor in the School of Education in Colorado Boulder, and where I am studying and teaching and thinking a lot about, you know, how young people engage with music and what that can be in their, you know, in their educational lives in particular, and what that could be in terms of their connection with culture and connection with ways to shift consciousness, to be quite honest. And so I'm just happy to be here. I've already learned so much from Caesar along the way of working, you know, adjacent to this project, and, you know, very excited to hear, you know, what folks are saying and thinking and questions around the topic. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. I guess, you know, I'm going to moderate as best as I can some of the stimulating discussion I know that we'll have on this topic. Anybody that has any questions or thoughts that they'd like to explore deeper, please add them in the chat, and we'll present them in a kind of stack basis and try to condense as much as we can possibly. So I guess first question, and this is something that I think is directed mainly at you, Caesar, but if other folks have experience as well, please do feel free to jump in. But let's start with Ken's question, which is, from your experience in research, were you able to interface, experience, and learn about the sacred forms of music that you mentioned as being forbidden for outsiders? And if so, what were some of those challenges that you came across in gaining that access, and what approaches to gaining that access did you find most helpful?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for asking that. And also, there's a lot of people who are doing this work in this chat right now, so I feel anybody can really speak up on this too. So I know like people like Colter here, and yeah, there's a lot of people here. So so in particular, I think I could describe it with one experience. Sure, working with sacred music, was I able to access that knowledge there? Right, when I went into the field and recorded in Nolopi, this was considered a sacred ceremony. The way I first of all approached it is, I was like, hey, I'm here to help Dr. Kuvor document. That's it. Basically, the way I was even able to enter the space was through Dr. Kuvor. Someone through the institution, and someone also connected to that particular group, and I would have never went there by myself to document that, because it's disrespectful and also could have been dangerous, to be honest. And when I was there in that approach, like, Dr. Coover let us know, this is some type of like things and knowledge that we may not have access to. And so that's the approach I took. So when I was on the field, when we were on the field with a camera, with microphones, we were always looking towards our guider in that sense, which was Dr. Kuvor. And he was, go record that, record this, record that. And basically that's what I was doing, right? And at the end of the day, with all of our document and footage, we handed it over to Dr. Kuvor, and we are not remixing that. We are not using that for music videos. We are not using any of that for no absolute reason, besides Dr. Kuvor's academic and scholarship. And so that's how I approached it. And I'm interested in what Colter might be able to say around that too.
Hey, Caesar, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Nice. Good to see everybody. Yeah, great work. If for those of you who don't know me, I was a Fulbright scholar in University of Ghana, 2018, building a music studio and teaching music production in the University of Ghana. And I've been working in Ghana and learning in Ghana and teaching in Ghana for, since 2000. And the more I try to contribute there, the more I just try to think about practical, just small solutions to issues about how to connect A to B, whether A is like one artist and B is another artist, or A is one artist and B is an idea. And what are the very practical tools that are needed to do that? I had the benefit of studying with Nketia, Professor Nketia, before he died, and he spent his whole career really trying to do that. There's stories when I got to meet drummers that were children in the 60s that, Nketia would see them performing and say, bring them to the African Studies program. We need this person teaching that. Something simple like that created a whole arch for someone's career. Or like Ose Karanchi, he saw that he was one of the few people playing Seprawa, bring him to the African Studies program. And that created his whole career of keeping that tradition developing and going on. And so when you're talking about preservation, I mean, I think about it in terms of, can you make people's careers? Can you give some people that really have this knowledge a career that then impact other people's lives and lead to production projects and to teaching and to touring? And Osei was actually, and if you don't know Osei Crunchy, he's a great performer of Separoa, and he teaches in UG and also, in Winneba. And he landed in the US March 3rd of this year. So he was supposed to be teaching, and as you can imagine, by March 10th, the whole world shut down. So his timing was really bad, and we had a lot of plans to get him playing in the US, and he was supposed to do some teaching, which didn't happen. What happened, basically, he had to fly back to Ghana. He wasn't able to fly into Ghana. He had to fly to Togo and was held in quarantine at the border for 2 weeks. He made it back to his family. But, you know, those are just one of the many relationships that I've had the chance to be involved with, people to be involved with, and try to keep this music just getting out to people. It's one thing to record something, it's one thing to sample something, but it's another thing to do the hard work, to actually set up a tour, to actually create, you know, possible income out of this music. And so, I mean, you know, I don't claim to have any answers to it, but I look to people like Nketia, and just to try to make point A to connect to point B, whatever that is, and what needs to happen for that to be possible. So yeah, great work, and that's my 2 cents for now. But thanks for.
Kalonji, I also know that you are connected to, you know, sacred music in the U.S., in Chicago, right, in Colorado. And I don't know, I think you can also address Ken's question. You might have some great knowledge to address this question about approaching the sacred context.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when thinking about hip hop music and, you know, Black diasporic music in the, you know, in the Americas, the sort of distinction between sacred and popular music has definitely blurred at times. But, you know, I think one of the great things about like working on this project was being able to sort of trace some of that history and the importance of the sort of cultural connection between hip hop now and its, you know, its ancestors, let's say. So, you know, if we think about hip hop as sort of a descendant of soul music, coming from the blues, coming from, you know, spirituals, and tracing all the way back to, you know, a lot of the same rhythms from, you know, traditional West African and Central African music. Like, there's a certain way that you could think about like all hip hop as having a sort of sacred aspect to it, you know, because of that lineage, right? And, you know, I think we're in a moment right here in the States and around the world where we're sort of looking into and peering into the wounds of, you know, the history of Black subjugation in the Americas, right? And realizing that a lot of that subjugation, while it was rooted in violence, while it was rooted in, you know, in slavery, you could go back to the 1740s and look at the slave codes, and one of the number one things that was written in like, for example, the South Carolina slave codes was the prohibition of the drum, right? The prohibition of the drum, as well as writing and traditional African language, which you made that connection very well, Caesar, in terms of thinking about music as language. But these things were prohibited for a reason, because they did kind of serve a sacred purpose, right? They served a purpose of collective consciousness, of bringing people together. They were scared of rebellion, uprisings, revolutions, and the drum, and you know, particular African music was a way of, one, having a shared language, having a shared set of symbols, and also just creating movement together, collective movement, right? And so, I mean, I think, you know, trying to think about, you know, that idea of like sacred, you know, versus secular is really tough, right? Because I think right now, you know, people are through this process of sampling now trying to go back to, you know, a lot of, you know, West African music. Like you see these connections between, you know, even the current manifestations of like a Burna Boy and, you know, and hip hop, right? So like there's this sort of moment right now where we're experiencing like almost like a global Black music renaissance, right? And so that, I think that'll also sort of connect in a lot of ways with not just a renaissance in sort of music and sharing music, but how is it connected to this consciousness? Like how are, you know, folks like, you know, that have traditionally done hip hop in the States now thinking about this as an opportunity to like, yo, maybe I should go to University of Ghana and study. Like that's what your work, I think, is doing, is sort of creating that, those like those connections, and making not only the connections between the music and the sharing of music that you're doing with the sample packs, but then also the sharing of culture, the sharing of time, and the sharing of like, you know, relationality. How am I related to these people across the Atlantic? So yeah, I appreciate being a part of this project. I feel like I'm on the cutting edge every time I see like this your work and a different manifestation of it. So yeah, I'm interested. I'm actually interested in Uncle Mike's question that he threw in there.
Throw it out there. Throw it out. Yeah, that question.
Oh, okay. Word. No, I think he said, how many musicians, producers, vocalists, poets, artists are here in the room? Oh, okay. And what are y'all listening to? Who is inspiring y'all right now?
Feel free, anybody to share.
I'll jump in here and share some my perspective. This is a fan. I can't classify myself as a musician or anything that's so lofty, but you know, in addition to some of the folks in this room, been a big fan of another DJ that's working with traditional music out of the UK. Caesar alluded to one, Chancho Villacirquito, based out of Argentina. And then the other in the UK is Auntie Flo. He's been doing a lot of stuff with High Life Records and traditional music from across the globe. So anybody is tuned into Worldwide FM, highly suggest his mixes.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Eves. There's also another question here that I think Eves can definitely touch on. How do you handle, this is from Liz, how do you handle music ownership issues when urban artists record traditional music for compensation? So Ibrahim, I think you're a good person to answer this because you work in that field, right, of working with nonprofit organizations, urban artists, recording in traditional sense. So yeah, to repeat the question one more time, how do you handle music ownership issues when urban artists record traditional music for compensation?
Yeah, that is definitely a tricky one, something that I think is still being really figured out, where I know, you know, Caesar, yourself and the team have been really on the forefront of exploring some of those questions. So, you know, one way to think about it is on the performance side, you have musicians that are definitely doing the current performance, the recording, and their rendition of the traditional music. And so, you know, keeping them and their ownership tracked and compensated is one key piece. With so much of the traditional stuff and you know, in the US, pretty much everything before 1970, what they call the year of Mickey Mouse, because Disney's copyright began on that year, is what's considered the public domain. And so that's where the US demarcates, you know, traditional, quote unquote, public music that can be freely used. So it's, in one sense, you're able to use that without asking a lot of permission, and I think traditional music kind of falls into that category because so many people are building on it, are drawing inspiration from it. But you at the same time should be trying to give thanks and compensate those communities that originated it in whatever ways possible. So if it is at all possible to reach out to elders and folks that specialize in that music, I think that's very key.
Yeah, and I think to even go on top of that is, Herb Diamond was just in this chat, but had to leave a little early. But he specializes in copyright and ownership. And so one thing that we're doing is producing a podcast. And we have 3 episodes out on the podcast around music preservation. And Herb Diamond is going to be one of those guests. So we'll definitely make sure to present that question to Herb Diamond to also get his perspective from a legal perspective, given that Ghana and even the United States, they share the same copyright laws under WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization. So yes, thank you for asking that, Liz. We are still definitely trying to figure that out, and that's why we haven't distributed any of the samples just yet either. All right, so we'll look for some. Okay, so here's a question from Maya Parker. What is the perspective of traditional music artists in terms of sharing music with urban artists? Do you get the sense that they feel like they own traditional music, or is it more of a communal ownership? So I think this is a question that NFL King Grandy could definitely answer because of his experience working at the Music Preservation Workshop. So once again, Grandy, what is the perspective of traditional music artists, in terms of sharing music with urban artists? Okay, with traditional artists too. So I also know that Messina does a lot of work as well around that. So I would love to hear the perspectives of NFL King Grandy and Messina about this question. What is the perspective of traditional music artists in terms of sharing music with urban artists? And do you get a sense that there is they own traditional music, or is it more of a communal ownership? So yeah, I would love to hear from like Messina or Grandy on or both of y'all actually.
Okay, so basically, this is the fact that 2 artists from different side of the world and with 2 understanding are collaborating to do something, and are collaborating to create an act. And I believe they all have opinions from each side, and working together, they have one goal they will achieve at the end of the project. So bringing that bridge together will lead to a greater impact to this world, honestly.
And when you record, when recording like traditional music, what is your sense of ownership around that, right? Like now that you recorded our logo, right, at the Music Preservation Workshop.
I feel it's a communal one. It's just something we need to do for the community and just see how tradition has impact on the community. So that's the communal one.
All right. Thank you, Brandon. And I think that Messina is Messina trying to unmute? So Messina, do you have anything to share about that? Like the perspective of like traditional artists sharing music with urban artists? I know you work with a lot of artists, so definitely would love to hear it.
Yeah, hello, hi, it's Messina. No, with my experience with local artists and urban artists, it's very hard. A lot of time they feel like so even they will go as far as saying most of big artists, the root of their beat is come from them, but they never give them any credit. They just think because they make now the big name hip hop or Afrobeat or Afro pop, because those names are so big, but they don't appreciate that the beginning of all those beats, they come from the traditional beat. All those 1 2 3 4 or 1 2 3, all those beginning all come from there, but they never give those guys credit. Then when they try to mix the music together, they will be like, oh no, this is hip hop now. So it's because the hip hop is a big name, everything comes from them. But they forget all the way go back to jazz, or you go back, all those stuff come from the slave. And all those slave bring all those beats from here, from the beginning of all those beats, they all come from here. You go back to all to Palongo or you go to Rumba, all the beats will come from here, even all the way to jazz. But a lot of frustration with my discussion with the local, they never get any appreciation from big artists like hip hop, yeah, what's called rap or all those beats. They think like, oh no, we are copying them, but it's the other way around. They all the hip hop, all the rap, all those guys, they copy the beginning of the beat from them. Because if you break all those music down, you find all those basically the stuff you're doing with Palongo. If you break them all down, it's like that's the root from all the beat. So a lot of times, little frustration. That's my experience with those two groups. But we all love to mix it. But with the artists I work with, for me personally, I love to get the Palongo, the traditional, to have high kora playing with Palongo and then those beats together. It's like give some awesome beat. So even now, I'm trying to look on a website called Splice. I don't know if you guys know that website, but they have like a lot of loops. You can find some good loop. So I think we had to get more people to share the loops there or try to connect of how we help educate more people about all the beats. So
Yeah, I love Splice, man. I've been downloading some. I don't know if you know juke music. Where it goes beep 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 beep. No, I'll send you something about juke music. It's like really dancey, and it's from Chicago, Detroit, on Splice. But one thing that I'm also interested in too, on top of that, is okay, we recorded Palugo rhythms, right? And we had an artist, Achu Sopor, right? Achu, who is the performer. Okay, so Achu is the artist in the sense of the legal sense of copyright and ownership, right? But here's the thing too, Palugo is not even the original. Palugo was created also from Gome, right? So how I think that's where the problem exists too when it comes to ownership and copyright. Okay, like yeah, we can pay Achu as the performer, but Palugo was made out of even more music from the past, and that's one thing I definitely struggle to think about too, which I'll also present to Herb Diamond during the podcast. So yeah, but yeah, and so I have one thing that I also want to maybe mention. Laurie Thomas is in here. I know that you're interested in getting into some more knowledge about music preservation, but maybe can you maybe if you want to share, Laurie, if you're still here, what exactly more you would like to learn about in regards to music preservation. And I think there's people here who can answer that too, because even Liz, being cultural, working on the cultural end on the government side, can maybe answer from that perspective. Ibrahim can answer from an organizational perspective, and we have all kinds of artists here. So Laurie, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But if not, then I think we can definitely wrap this up. So I'll give you like a minute. All righty. All right, y'all. I want to say thank you so much for coming through. I will follow up with you. I will follow up with you with, I'm going to share my screen to show you exactly with what. And then, okay, can you see my screen? Okay, so I'm going to share the podcast with everybody who answered this chat and, you know, this virtual presentation. I will also share the sample pack. It's not up for distribution, but just for so you can hear it right now and stream it. And then lastly, I'll also send a source list of different sources, articles, different links to popular culture that involves all this type of research around samples and traditional music and all of that. But once again, thank you so much for coming through. This means a lot. I really wish we could have done this in Ghana. We could have had some drinks and turned up with live performances, but hey, we all have to adjust to these learning technologies right now. And I pray that everybody continues to stay safe during these times and to also support anybody that you need to support. So everyone, God bless you. And I will follow up on email with the resources, okay? Thank you.